Okay, hi there. Welcome along to this introduction to the musical theatre course that we run here at Long Road. I'm Nadine Slade. I'll be giving you a little bit of an introduction to the course, telling you about the different units that we do, all the different things that we have here in the Performing Arts Department at Long Road, and hopefully speaking to a couple of current students who can give you their experiences on the course so far. Thanks, Chris. Next slide. So, as I've already said, my name's Nadine. I'm the course team leader for the musical theatre course here at Long Road. Alongside me, I work with Lizzie, who's the course team leader for the music course that we run here, and she teaches all of the singing elements on the musical theatre course. We also have Chris, who's our technician, who does a wonderful job with everything we need him to, and then Ralph, who's our accompanist, who'll come and join you for all of your singing needs when we're doing the singing skills unit, and possibly when we're doing the full musical unit in the second year, but I'll get onto that in a moment. Next slide, please, Chris. Okay, so the musical theatre course that we run here at Long Road is a Pearson Level 3 extended certificate in performance with a musical theatre pathway. So it's a 2-year course with 5 units studied across the 2 years. So they're split 3 units in the first year and 2 units in the second year. So in the first year, one of the first units that we study is jazz dance technique, which does pretty much what it says in the title. So we study the basic technique of jazz dance. What are some of the key movements behind it? Thinking about the relationship that it has with the music. You'll study the background and the history of jazz dance, looking at key practitioners, people like Catherine Dunham, Jerome Robbins, Bob Fosse, and learn lots of different styles and techniques that they brought into jazz dance, and also learning some repertoire from each of those practitioners as well. Alongside that, you will do some further research into the history of jazz dance, how it progressed as a genre, and you will present your findings in an assessed presentation about the history of jazz dance. Alongside that, you are marked on your rehearsals and your performance of a jazz dance repertoire piece. And then finally, alongside that, you also have to keep a development journal, which is where you talk about how your skills have developed during the course of that unit. So you might talk about exercises that we've done in a lesson, or maybe how you found it learning different repertoire pieces, things that you found easy, things that you found a little bit difficult, setting yourself targets, and then talking about how it is that you are going to try and improve on those targets, and then reflecting on them. Have you met them? Have you improved your skills? So all of those different things join up together to make the assessment for that jazz dance unit. So a really practical unit, trying to develop your skills specifically in the jazz dance genre. At the same time, you also study a unit called Singing Techniques for Performers. Again, fairly self-explanatory in that you are developing your singing skills. So you really get into finding out all about the specifics of what can really help your singing voice. So learning about the different parts of the body that you need to use when you are singing and need to use effectively, thinking about how to warm up your voice and your body correctly, thinking about your use of breath and your posture, etc. So all of the different things that will really help to develop your singing skills ready for an effective performance. Alongside that, you use all of those techniques that you have learned about when it comes to warm up and sound production, and turn it into an assessed presentation. So another presentation like the jazz dance one that I've already mentioned. You do lots of rehearsals in preparation for some more repertoire performances. This time you will do both a solo repertoire performance and also an ensemble singing performance, so that you get to understand how you can use your voice effectively for a solo performance, and then how you work with other people as an ensemble to create an effective performance there. Again, like the jazz dance unit, you will keep a development journal where you're talking about how you have developed your singing skills, what has gone well in the workshops that you've done, areas that you feel you might need to improve on, and how you're going to do that. So setting yourself targets for improvement and then endeavouring to work on those during each of the rehearsals, both in college and in your own time. The third and final unit that we study in the first year is called Developing Skills and Techniques for Performance. So this is the first unit where we start to incorporate all three art forms together. So singing, acting and dancing, all within one unit. So you'll really start to explore what it means to be a musical theatre performer. So you will look into maybe the different training that a musical theatre performer will have to go through. You might look at some different case studies of how people have got into the profession. So where did they start? Where did they train? What extra things have they done? So that you get a really good understanding of what it takes to be a musical theatre performer, and maybe add in your own experiences. So maybe you're at the beginning of this journey. Where are you intending to go with it? Are you intending to go on and study at a university, a conservatoire? You know, you can add in kind of your own experiences and your own plans for progression to it, and maybe link that to some of the case studies that you have explored. Alongside that, you will be doing, again, lots of practical sessions and workshops, trying to develop your singing, acting and dancing skills, but applying them to pieces of repertoire that incorporate all three art forms at the same time. So you're working on performance pieces that develop your singing, acting, dancing skills all alongside each other. So you're really starting to get a good understanding of how the different art forms work well together, how they complement each other, and so that you can gain a better understanding of your skill set and how you are progressing onto hopefully that triple threat performer. So what are the areas that you're really strong in, and maybe what are the areas that you still need to develop? So we'll work on an ensemble repertoire piece that you will hopefully perform to an audience, possibly of family and friends, and then maybe they'll give you some feedback on the performance, so that you can really learn about your performance skills, about your understanding of musical theatre repertoire, setting yourself targets moving forward into the second year of how you're going to progress your skills further, and just try and continue on that journey to being a triple threat performer. So moving into year two, there are just 2 units in the second year. The first one being musical theatre techniques. So again, this is where we're incorporating all 3 art forms, singing, acting, dancing, in one unit. But here you're really starting to explore in more detail what it is that makes an effective musical theatre performance. So you look into a little bit more the kind of forms and structures in musicals, the different types of characters, how different themes are used, different genres within musical theatre, the specific functions of dance, of drama, of music. What are they there for? How do they work together to create an effective piece of musical theatre? So you'll do some exploration into that, both your own research, and we will also talk you through it as well, give you some specific musicals that we want you to look at. So you'll really study, say, 3 musicals in depth, and then write a report about the different techniques that are used in those musicals and how they create an effective piece of musical theatre. Whilst you are doing that within the musical theatre techniques unit, we'll also start rehearsals and auditions for a musical. So in the second year, that's the first time where you're starting to try and have a go at a full-scale musical. So in the first year, we've just had kind of smaller pieces of repertoire to really focus on skill development. In the second year, we're starting to progress to a full-scale musical, so that you get an understanding of how a musical fits together, the audition process, and all of the different roles that everybody has to play within a musical itself. Again, like you did in the first year, you also keep a development journal whilst you are working on that musical. So again, you're reflecting on your skill development. How have your skills progressed since the first year? And how, now that you're applying it to a full musical, what have you learned from that first year? And what do you still need to progress forwards? So you should have learnt, hopefully, in the first year how to effectively analyse and evaluate your skill development, so that in the second year you can write a really effective and reflective development journal. So the final unit that you study in year 2 is the biggest of all of the units, and it's called Group Performance Workshop. So this is the first one that's actually a devised unit. So rather than you learning already existing repertoire, you actually get a stimulus from the exam board, and as a group you work together to try and create your own piece of musical theatre. So you're trying to use all of the skills that you've developed over the 2 years, and then turning it into your own performance piece. So the stimulus that you get could be anything. In previous years we've had pictures, we've had poems, quotes, all kinds of different things, possibly similar to those of you that might be doing GCSE drama or dance. Sometimes we get a stimulus and you have to respond to that stimulus and create a performance piece. The same kind of idea, but this time you're working as a group and trying to create a performance piece that incorporates singing, acting and dancing all together in one performance piece. So a really interesting and fun and creative unit, because you can create a musical in any style that you want to, as long as it is relating to that stimulus. Alongside the creative process, you also have to do a little bit of written work, which is mainly talking about the actual creative process that you are going through. So you talk about your response to the stimulus, the research that you did, maybe looking into different practitioners, different styles that might have influenced you in some way and inspired you. And then you talk about the actual process that you've gone through. So the rehearsals, what did you do? What material did you try out? Did it go well? Did you perform it to somebody and get some feedback? Did you then decide, yes, that's really effective, we're going to develop that further? Or maybe this part wasn't as effective, so we're maybe going to scrap that or rewrite that bit and have another go. So it's all about the creative process and working together as a group. So for that one, you get marked on your performance of the piece, but you also get marked on the way that you work together as a group and the way that you actually devise the piece, and also the way that you can evaluate your kind of presence in that group and the way that you worked, and evaluating your overall performance. So it's a very, very practical course overall, giving you a really good kind of basic skill set moving forward, hopefully, into further the world of performing arts or musical theatre specifically, but also allowing you to be really reflective and evaluative, and teaching you lots of wonderful life skills along the way. Next slide, please, Chris. That kind of those 5 units that I've mentioned, that adds up in total to 67% being internal assessment. So that's 4 out of the 5 units being assessed internally by myself and the rest of the team. So we will be marking the presentations, assessing your rehearsals, your performances, your development journals, and then they may then be sent off to be looked at by a standards verifier, essentially moderated, to make sure that they're agreeing with our marks, but 67% of it is internally assessed by us. The final 33%, which is 1 out of the 5 units, which is that final unit I spoke about, the group performance workshop, although it says their exam, it's not a proper exam, as it were. It's not a sit down in the sports hall exam. It's just that it's externally set and assessed by Pearson. So it's not marked by us. That's the one and only unit that is externally assessed. So they set that stimulus, and then you do your written work at various stages throughout the creative process, and then we film your final performance piece and send it all off to Pearson, and then it gets marked by them. So only 1 out of the 5 units being marked externally, but just bear in mind it's not necessarily an exam as you may well be used to at GCSE or in any other A levels that you might be looking at. It's a very different form of assessment that may well suit people that don't do very well in an exam situation, because there is no final end of year exam. It's all, majority of it is marked internally, and then the only externally marked aspect is a performance on video and then some written work that you complete in a computer room and is then sent off to an exam board. Thank you, Chris. So at Long Road, one of the wonderful things that we do is enable you to be able to mix and match the different courses that you might like to do between A levels and applied courses. So the musical theatre course is an applied course. So they're the red dots on that slide there. And you could decide to do it alongside maybe another 2 extended certificates to make a full programme, or you might decide to do it alongside some A levels, or maybe alongside a bigger applied programme like a diploma, which is the equivalent to 2 A levels. So you can mix and match this course with lots of other courses, including maybe some of the other performing arts courses that we do here. So you could mix and match it with the drama A level or with the music applied course. They can work really nicely together because there are lots of elements and skills that cross over between them, but not so much the subject matter. So although they can work really nicely together, you won't be studying the same things in the different courses. But again, you can mix and match it with lots of other courses within the college. Thank you, Chris. So just confirming, as I said there, this course is an applied course. It's an extended certificate. So it's a 60 credit course equivalent to 1 A level. So in order to do a full programme, you need to do 2 other courses alongside it. And at the end of it, it will be worth the same amount as an A level. Thinking ahead possibly to university applications, the UCAS points are equivalent for a 60 credit course and an A level. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so normally we try and do as many trips and workshops and things as we can. So recent trips have included going to see musicals like Six, Cabaret, Matilda, Funny Girl, American Idiot, and workshops with institutions like ArtsEd and ARU, both going to those institutions and then coming here to Long Road to work with us. Obviously, given the current situation, we haven't been doing as much of that this year, only remotely, but we're obviously hoping to do as many of these things as we can and get back into all of it as soon as we can. Alongside that, we also run an enrichment programme, which we would be encouraging you to get involved with, where we run things like choir, maybe a college production, which might be a musical, dance technique. We also run some Lambda examinations. So lots of different things going on, and we'd be expecting you as a musical theatre student to be taking part in at least 1, maybe more, of those enrichment activities. Okay, so that's all about the course, how it works, the different units, etc. that we do, and all the different ways that we run things at Long Road. So I'm going to pause kind of me talking about the course for a little bit to try and get some views of some students. So the first student we were going to talk to, unfortunately, isn't able to join at the meeting at the moment, having some technical issues, but she has sent me some response. So I gave her a couple of questions that I might have asked her in this meeting, and she sent me some of her responses. So I'm just going to talk you through some of those quickly, and then we'll hand over live to one of our other students. So these are some responses from one of our Year 1 students called Megan. So I asked her why she chose to do the musical theatre course, Is it what she expected? And she responded saying that she chose musical theatre because she's been doing performing arts for most of her life. It's something that she really enjoys doing. She's been in loads of different musicals and she loves learning new things about the history behind musical theatre. And I think that's something that she's enjoying about this course. So she already had a real love of performing and musicals, but this is maybe giving her a little bit more of a background and a context about the history. So I asked her to tell us maybe what the lessons are like. And she said that the lessons are fun and interactive. You learn about all the different practitioners in musical theatre, learn parts of their work, and then perform it back to the other people in the class. So yeah, it's a very practical course, like I've said. You learn lots of different pieces of repertoire, learn about lots of different practitioners, and yeah, it is fun, I think. I'm glad Megan agrees, and interactive. And then finally, I asked Megan, is there much practical work? Is there much written work? So kind of what's the balance between them? And she said there's quite an even mix of practical and written work. It depends what you're learning about. So, for example, when she's introduced to a new practitioner, you watch examples, you get some information about their history and what they do in the performing arts industry. Then you do some practical work in college. And then sometimes when this term, especially when we're doing some of the remote lessons, that's when the students are doing some of the written work. So we do try to do lots of practical lessons remotely, but obviously we understand people are working in maybe quite limited space at home. So quite often this term, some of the students have been working on their written work, doing some research, working on their presentations and their journals in the remote lessons, because we've been alternating between live and remote lessons between the year ones and the year twos this term. And so yeah, I think she's finding that we do really loads of practical on the weeks that they're in college, and then more of the written work on the remote weeks, with a bit of written practical work as well when we can. So thank you to Megan for sending me those answers. It's a shame you couldn't hear it from her, but hopefully it's given you a bit of a flavour for how she's finding it this year. So hopefully I'm going to move on now to live interaction with one of our other year one students, who is Hannah, and ask her a couple of other questions about the course, to get a bit of an insight as to how she's finding life in the musical theatre course in her first year, and see what she's thinking. Okay, so hi Hannah.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. So, like I say, Hannah is in her first year at Long Road. What school did you come from, Hannah?
Linton Village College.
Wonderful. Okay, so a couple of questions that I wanted to ask Hannah, because these are kind of things that I think possible prospective students might want to know. Is just overall, what's your favourite thing about the musical theatre course? What are you enjoying?
I'd say my favourite thing is probably the variety offered on the course, because there's a mixture of the dancing, singing and the acting, and they're equally weighted as well, so we don't just focus on one aspect. It provides a lot more interest and is of course a lot of fun, as we can explore all areas and find our strengths and as well as our weaknesses.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Hannah. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. And yeah, so Hannah's right, it is very much equally weighted. So it is equally split between the singing, acting and dancing, especially in the first year. We separate them out. Obviously, Hannah will find as time goes on, we'll mix them together. But yeah, it is very important to point out that they are equally weighted. You will have to study all three. So my next question is kind of thinking about this idea of mixing and matching courses. So what other subjects do you study alongside musical theatre? Do they work well together or are they completely different?
I also take drama and psychology alongside musical theatre, and drama works really well as it complements it, as it's part of the performing arts. And it helps to develop my skills in greater depth, which I can then implement back to the musical theatre course. And then I also take psychology, which is a completely different choice, but it provides another outlook for me and widens my experiences and gives a totally new subject of interest.
Perfect. Thank you, Hannah. So are you finding it quite nice or quite different having a mixture of A levels and applied? Because obviously there's different ways of assessment. So the musical theatre, maybe you're finding that you're being assessed now already, you're doing some assessments, whereas the drama, things will happen a bit later on in the year. Is that quite nice to spread it out?
Yeah, it's nice, and it's more reassuring when you have the tests and they're more spread out, because you can focus individually on your subjects.
Brilliant, thank you. And then final question is thinking about possibly people that might be watching this or listening. Why should prospective students join this course or join Long Road?
I think they should join this course if they have an interest in performing arts, or maybe if they hope to go into performing in the future, because it not only improves the practical and theory ability, but it also encourages you to build your self-confidence and develop your imagination. And it's also just really good fun.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Hannah. I really appreciate you giving up your time this evening and giving us some wonderful answers. I think that was really, hopefully, very helpful for possible prospective students. Thank you very much, Hannah. Okay, so I will carry on. So Chris, if we could have the next slide, please. Okay, so just finishing up then. So a few important things to mention. In the summer next year, we have a few important things. We have more open evenings, which are meant to be possibly for year 10s, looking ahead before they go into year 11, looking at possible progression. But if you haven't been able to come to Long Road, then by all means, you could come along to those open evenings in the summer. Hopefully we'll be open fully so that you can come and actually see the campus and meet us in person. Alongside that, in June, we also have our welcome days, which is for prospective students. So if you choose to apply to Long Road, we'll invite you to a welcome day where you come and spend the day trying out your subjects and getting to know us. It's worth noting that for musical theatre, similarly to any of our performing arts subjects, on those welcome days we'll be asking you to do an audition. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just the world of performing arts. If you want to go into it, you have to get used to auditioning. So we'll be asking you to prepare a song, a dance and a monologue, ready to come in and perform to us and some other prospective students on that day. It can be any style. It doesn't have to be musical theatre. It could be anything you fancy. You could create it yourself, or you could learn a piece of repertoire and perform it to us. It's about us trying to get an understanding of your skills, and also you kind of trying out the style of the course, finding out what it's like to perform all three art forms and figure out if the course is right for you. So nothing to be afraid of. But I just wanted to make you aware of it because you would receive emails about it, possibly in the spring, if you do decide to apply to Long Road. Last slide, please, Chris. Okay, so that's it from me. Just a reminder that the final deadline for applications to Long Road is the 12th of January 2021. So you can apply on the website. If following this presentation or anything else that you've watched this evening, you have any questions about the course or about the college, then please feel free to email any of those addresses on the screen there. They will hopefully get back to you, or if it's a more specific query to do with musical theatre or any of the performing arts courses, they will then forward it on to us and we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can. So I hope that's been helpful for you, finding out about the musical theatre course. I hope that we're able to meet lots of you soon. Thanks very much. Bye.